3. Constituted as human nature is, it was impossible that these elements of the iniquity could remain stationary. They were bound to progress. The devil, who cast some of the Smyrnians into prison, was an outward pressure that restrained the too rapid development of the apostasy. This devil, or pagan Roman power, hindered the heading up of the apostasy in the lawless one until the time came for him to be taken out of the way. The development was therefore progressive. It required 214 years from the communication of the Apocalypse to mature the Ephesian declension into the Laodicean lukewarmness, at which it finally and permanently arrived through the intermediate Smyrnian, Pergamean, Thyatiran, Sardian, and Philadelphian periods. The Apocalypse may be compared to a telescope, which, when shut up, is all contained in an outer case. The outer case is the primary vision of the Son of Man, etc., the 7 Epistles, the vision of the throne and cherubim, to the end of the 5th chapter. These all relate to the saints and their internal affairs, and that with especial reference to the consummation in the promised kingdom. To them the Spirit saith, I will give to those of you who are faithful, and keep my word, and do not deny my name. I will give to you to eat of the arboretum of the life, which is in the midst of the paradise of the deity. I will give you the wreath of the life. I will give you to eat of the hidden manna, and a white pebble inscribed with a new name, known only to him who receives it. I will give you power over the nations, and ye shall rule them with a rod of iron. I will give you the morning star. Ye shall walk with me in white. I will not blot out your name from the book of the life, but will confess it before my Father, and before his angels. I will make you pillars in the temple of my deity, and ye shall go no more out. I will write upon you the name of my deity, and the name of the city of my deity, the new Jerusalem, which descendeth out of the heaven from my deity, and my new name. And I will give to you to sit with me in my throne, even as I conquer and sit with my Father in his throne. Having brought the promises to this climax, the possession of dominion over all nations with glory, honour, incorruptibility, and life in the aeons of the aeons, the Spirit next brings up the throne in vision, and shows the believer, the victorious saints, in their relation to the throne, under the symbols of the 24 elders and the 4 living ones, ready for action, or the execution of judgment, as the result of which they shall possess the kingdom and dominion under the whole heaven, which Daniel says is the end of the matter. Chapter 7, verses 27 and 28. In view of this result, they sing a new song, which terminates with the assured conviction that they shall reign on the earth. Nor do they deceive themselves in this, for the lightnings and thunderings and voices of the war of the great day of the Almighty Deity which proceed out of the throne, chapter 4 verse 5, being expended, their dominion is universally acknowledged. And every creature which is in the heaven and on the earth and under the earth, and such as are in the sea, and all that are in them, I heard, saying, Blessing, and honour, and glory, and power, unto him that sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb, for the aeons of the aeons, or 1,000 years. Here, then, is a continuous discourse in relation to the heirs of the kingdom, or the saints, the which is diffused over the 7 epistles and 2 succeeding chapters, and brings us in its consummation to the blessing of all nations in Abraham and his seed. But why were the promises diffused over 7 epistles, and not all summed up in one? Because the period from John to the opening of the heaven at the hour of judgment, when the saints rise and meet the Lord, was a long interval, subdivided into periods, to the divisions of which the whole writing of the Apocalypse was made to conform. Those who read the book fresh from John's pen were perfectly familiar with the consummation it portrayed, for it was the gospel of the kingdom they had believed and obeyed, symbolically exhibited. But when they had read to the end of the 5th chapter, the question would arise, but when shall these things be? We see that there is to be a 10 days tribulation, and an hour of trial upon the whole habitable, to try them that dwell upon the earth. This will take time. But how long to the taking him that letteth out of the way? And how long shall the lawless one continue? All of which must ensue before the consummation is established. The epistles do not answer this inquiry. It was all shut up. This, however, might be seen that in default of further revelation, the first 5 chapters must be regarded as covering the whole ground from AD 98 to the millennium, and as their contents were resolved into 7s, so the period might be subdivided into 7s likewise. But the arrangement of these 7s would be the difficulty. This, however, is very much mitigated by the structure of the book of the seals. Like the book of the 7 epistles, it consists of 7, and the last of the 7 seals contains within it, upon the telescopic principle, other 7s, which when drawn out to the right focal distance extend to the subjugation of the nations, and their ascription of blessing to their conquerors. Thus, then, though the first 6 seals were all opened and fulfilled in the subversion of the constitution of pagan Rome, a period of 214 years, the 7th seal covers the whole period from the era of Constantine to the termination of the War of the Great Day, a period as far as hitherto elapsed of about 1,550 years. Hence the 7th seal contains the 7 trumpets, and the 7 vials also, inasmuch as the seventh trumpet contains them. We conclude then, after the analogy of this arrangement respecting the affairs without, through which the consummation is to be wrought out, that the states with respect to affairs within, or pertaining to the relation of the saints to things ecclesiastical or spiritual, is similarly subdivided. In other words, that the seven ecclesias, in their moral or spiritual condition, were each representative of the state of Christendom at seven distinct epochs, approximating to the periods of the seven seals. According to this, the Ephesian state of the ecclesias would be the introductory of the first seal, the Smyrnian of the second, the Pergamean of the third, the Thyatiran of the fourth, the Sardian of the fifth, the Philadelphian of the sixth, and the Laodicean of the seventh. Now, another reason for this arrangement may be found in the fact that all things are for the sake of the saints, and that the seals, consequently, were arranged on their account. That is, that the moral or spiritual condition of the Christian section of the Roman people was the Spirit's reason for organizing the judicial visitations upon them represented in the seals. This view of the matter explains why there were any seals at all, and why the sixth seal was not the first, nor the first the sixth. In the Ephesian state of Christendom, there was strength, labour, patience, no faint-heartedness, hatred of Nicolaitanism, and intolerance of evildoers. Therefore, the typical horse of the first seal was white, and the government that rode it prosperous. But in the Philadelphian state of spirituality, there was only a little strength, and therefore the sixth seal was opened upon the community which had become Christian in name, and was on the eve of insurrection against the constituted authorities of the state, who still clung to paganism and its vested interests. And therefore, in its terrible developments, they said to the mountains and the rocks, "Fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of his wrath is come." Revelation 6, verses 12 to 17. This is the language not of pagans or idolaters that regarded Christianity as a fable, but of those wretched and pitiable and poor and blind and naked, composing the Laodicean professors, who were about to be vomited out of the mouth of the Spirit in this and the succeeding periods. For the judgments of the seals, though they began successively, did not each terminate before its successor began, but intermingled their events. I do not undertake, nor is it necessary, to draw the exact lines of demarcation between the 7 degrees of declension from the purity of faith and practice to the establishment of the strong Laodicean delusion, in which professors of Christianity said they had need of nothing. Paul said evil men and seducers would wax worse and worse. this was true of the 7 states of pre-Constantinian Christendom. They all of them waxed worse and worse under the influence of seducers, until there was no scope for repentance. In all these states, the number of the faithful diminished, until, when the time came for the Spirit to spew the nothing-needing mass out of his mouth, only a remnant remained to keep the faith alive among mankind. Increased declension always preceded the opening of a seal, so that, for example, the Ephesian state of morals did not commence with the opening of the first seal in AD 98. For taking this as the date of the Apocalypse, the Ephesian angel was in a fallen state compared with its first love. Hence the Smyrnian spiritual declension would be maturing under the first seal, the Pergamean under the second, the Thyatiran under the third, the Sardian under the fourth, the Philadelphian under the fifth, and the Laodicean under the sixth, so that the judgment of the sixth seal would be the judicial energy by which the spewing from the Spirit's mouth would be effected, and the Laodicean apostasy, thus ejected, would become the spiritual order of the seventh seal. The same principle obtained in the superinduction of the trumpets. The increasing iniquity of the Laodiceans in all parts of the Roman habitable made the world obnoxious to the judgments they symbolized. The West seems to have transcended the East in idolatry and abomination, and therefore their judgment by the barbarians who sacked Rome and desolated Italy and the adjacent countries was earlier and complete. And when the East became ripe, the 5th and 6th trumpets tormented them and suppressed the sovereignty of the Laodiceans. In the West, these had converted their barbarian conquerors to Laodiceanism. They formed a church and state alliance with them, and became the great harlot with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication. All the Western habitable worshipped this spiritual and civil power, except the remnant and the witnesses. These two classes were the subjects of great oppression and cruelty at the hands of the Laodiceans, who did their utmost to exterminate them. Because of this, the thunders of the 6th trumpet pealed against them, and when this storm, by which Laodicean Protestantism was established as an antagonism in the very camp of the apostasy, had subsided, the 7th trumpet began to sound, and is still sounding, and will continue to sound, until the 7 vials, which are the blasts, as it were, of the trumpet, in which is contained all the wrath of the deity that remains to be poured out upon mankind for 1,000 years, shall be exhausted, the result of which will be the spewing forth of political and spiritual Laodiceanism in all its Romish and Protestant modifications by Jesus and the saints, after the type of the ejectment of paganism from place and power by the male offspring of Jezebel, AD 324, and the setting up of the throne seen of John in the vision of the 4th chapter. The following chronological scheme on page 428 will exhibit to the reader as one view my idea of the antitypical spiritual states of the pre-Constantinian Christendom in their several relations to the 7 periods of the seals. Thus, from the day of Pentecost, AD 33, according to the Vulgar era, or correctly 35 years, 4 months and 20 days from the birth of Jesus to his appearing in power to establish the kingdom, a period as far as already elapsed of nearly 1,828 years. We have 8 ethical or moral states or conditions of things related to Christianity. I say 8, 7 apocalyptic states, and 1 by which they were preceded. This was the apostolic state of Christendom. Chronological tableau of the apostasy. Ephesian state, existing before the opening and extending into the period of the first seal. Christians fallen from their first love and works. Revelation 2 verses 4 and 5. This relates to Ignatius, AD 107. The first seal. The white horse from AD 96. Roman people in peace and prosperous. Paganism declining. Nominal Christianity on the increase, with blasphemy. Smyrnian state. The Ephesian ethics assuming the Smyrnian faces. Revelation 2 verse 9. This relates to Justin 165, Polycarp 167, and Martyrs of Lyon and Irenaeus 177. Second seal. The red horse from AD 185, civil wars and bloodshed. Revelation 6 verse 4. Pergamean state. The Smyrnian state becoming Pergamean, holders of the doctrine of Balaam and the Nicolaitans. Revelation 2 verse 14 and 15. Celsus objected that Christians were now so split into sects that the name only remained to them in common. Wasn't very well read. Celsus objected that Christians were now so split into sects that the name only remained to them in common. This relates to Tertullian, Pantaenus, Clemens Alexandrinus, and First Divinity School at Alexandria in Egypt. Third seal. The Black Horse from AD 217. Distress. Revelation 6 verse 5. Thyatiran state. The Pergamean, with all its evils, merging into the worse Thyatiran. Christians intensely nominal. The prophetess Jezebel and the Satan. Revelation 2 verses 20 and 24. This relates to the emperors Alexander AD 222 and Philip 244. Nominal Christians Origen, Cyprian, Felicissimus. Fourth seal. The Pale Horse from AD 248. Sword, famine, pestilence, wild beasts. Revelation 6 verse 8. Decian persecution. End of the world thought to be at hand. Sardian state. spiritual death resulting from long peace and Platonism. Revelation 3 verses 1 and 2. The Thyatiran or Jezebel and Satan ethics, working death or becoming Sardian. This relates to Dionysius of Alexandria, Paul the First Hermit, AD 250, Paul of Samosata, 264, Gregory Thaumaturgus, Antony the Egyptian, founder of monkery, AD 270. Fifth seal, the community of fellow servants and brethren, which had become Sardian or ready to die, intensely persecuted by Diocletian from AD 303. The Spirit comes upon them in this judgment like a thief. Revelation 3 verse 3. Philadelphian state. Only a little strength remains in the Christian commonwealth. Superstition prevalent on every hand, and Christianity in a decayed state, a little benefited by the severe trial. Fast becoming Laodicean. Sixth seal, a great political earthquake and departure of the heaven as a scroll from AD 311. Dissolution of the pagan construction of the Roman government, or that which hindered the revelation of the lawless one, taken out of the way. Revelation 6 verse 12 and 2 Thessalonians 2 verses 7 and 8. Laodicean state. The little strength of the Philadelphian exhausted. Laodiceanism fully established. Persecution having ceased, and the Catholics, as nominal Christians were now called, being in high favour with the authorities, they say, "We are rich and increased in goods, and have need of nothing." Revelation 3 verse 17. Spewed out. Seventh seal. Opened AD 324. Silence in the heaven, about the space of half an hour. Revelation 8 verse 1. The Laodicean strong delusion becomes the Holy Roman Catholic Church, or religion of the Roman state by law established. Laodicean state. The Laodicean state continues to the approaching advent of Christ. And these, the fifth, sixth, and seventh seals, relate to Eusebius, the ecclesiastical historian, and the following are Laodiceans: Arius, Athanasius, Constantine the Great, Ambrose, Basil, Chrysostom, Augustine, Jerome, Etid genus omne, Wycliffe, Huss, Jerome of Prague, Luther, Melanchthon, Zuinglius, Erasmus, Calvin, Knox, Cranmer, Ridley, the Nonconformists, Whitfield, Wesley, E. Irving, Cummings, Scott, Campbell, Himes, Miller, Joe Smith, Marsh, Spurgeon, and such like. The Laodicean state extends from the sixth seal to the millennium, or concurrent with the seventh seal.